Good afternoon. Welcome to the City Club of Cleveland. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Hubbard. I am the Inspector Instructor for 3rd Battalion, 25th Marines. The United States Marine Corps, in partnership with the City of Cleveland, is rolling out the Marine Week Cleveland Speaker Series, which will bring senior Marine Corps leadership to Cleveland to discuss current, relevant topics to the nation, starting today and continuing through Marine Week Cleveland in June. The Speaker Series will focus on a variety of issues, including the ongoing operations in Afghanistan, NATO in the 21st century, the next chapter in NASA space exploration, as well as leadership skills from the combat zone to the classroom to the boardroom, and innovative medical developments assisting returning wounded warriors. I am very pleased to introduce today's speaker, Major General Ronald L. Bailey. As the commanding general of the oldest, largest active duty division in the United States Marine Corps, Major General Ronald Bailey leads a multi-role expeditionary ground combat-ready force of more than 26,000 men and women. The 1st Marine Division will deploy with the 1st Marine Expeditionary Force in March to support combat operations in Helmand Province of Afghanistan. After commissioning and graduation from the basic school and the infantry officer course in 1978, he was ordered to 3rd Marine Division in Okinawa, Japan to serve with 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines as a rifle platoon commander. During the next 3 decades, Major General Bailey would serve in more than a dozen assignments ranging from a commanding officer at the Marine Recruit Depot in Parris Island, South Carolina, to parade commander at Marine Barracks 8th and I in Washington, D.C., to director of the Expeditionary Warfare School in Quantico, Virginia. In June 2011, Major General Bailey was assigned to Camp Pendleton, California, and assumed command as the commanding general for the 1st Marine Division. Major General Bailey has 2 master's degrees, Business and Management Administration from Webster University, and 1 from National Security Strategy from the National War College, Washington, D.C. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce to you Major General Bailey.
Good morning. Thank you, Mike, for the warm introduction and welcome. I've been in Mike's life for quite some time, so I've known him since he was a young lieutenant and kind of watched him grow. I've got several things I want to share with you, and as you can see, I have some pictures here because pictures are worth 1,000 words, so I'm going to share with you some pictures kind of keep things alive, and I think you'll better understand what the challenge that we're facing when we go through a slide presentation that I have. To all distinguished guests, mayors and city officials, and our sports team representative, thank you very much for the opportunity. This morning I had a very interesting morning. It started off with a meeting with the mayor, and then I went down to East Technical High School, and I had the opportunity to spend some time with about 60 bright-eyed students in the ROTC program. And someone told me it takes a lot of courage to come to Cleveland in the winter, but I think it takes a lot of courage to go and stand before those high school students who were there, who were all eager and just ready to fire things at you, from everything to, you know, why you wear this and what you're doing here. And it kind of reminded me of a story about an individual. It was this wonderful rancher in Arizona. And this rancher, he was giving a group of people a tour of his estate, his 1,200-acre estate. He had a beautiful mountainside, and as he was walking his group through his flat there, he had this big pool. And this big pool was filled with alligators. And he said, I value courage so much that I fill my pool with alligators, that anyone who jumps in that pool and swims from one side to the other, I'll give them anything, my money and my land, whatever they ask for. And at that time, the members that were with his party turned and began to walk away on that absurd challenge. So just then they heard a splash in the pool, and he looked around, and there was an individual in the pool, you know, making these death-defying movements as the alligator made a clap here and one hap there, and he was moving from side to side and owning the alligator, and he finally got to the other side, and as he got to the other side, he was bent over trying to catch his breath. And the owner came up, he said, "My gosh, you're the bravest man I've ever met. I'll give you anything, my land, my money." And he said, "I just want to know who the hell pushed me in the pool." So it takes a lot of courage to go and stand before students. I think it takes a lot of courage to come here in Cleveland in the wintertime. But I want to do a couple of things. I'm gonna talk to you about writ large Marine Corps, big Marine Corps, and I'm going to bring it back down and then go specifically into Afghanistan, what we're doing in Afghanistan and what's going on, and then from there kind of wrap it up with, you know, where we are in the future. So I'm going to really kind of take you on big picture Marine Corps, specific Afghanistan, then big picture Marine Corps again as to where we're going, and kind of fits in with the strategy that you hear, that you're hearing our president talk about when he says we're changing our focus. So I'm going to try to cover a little of that as I go through the presentation. And in line with that, the administration has put out some pretty clear guidance as to the direction that we're going to go with the military in terms of our focus and our size. But our Commandant, General Amos, put out some very specific things for the Corps. He put out some priorities for us. And the number one priority is to make sure that we provide the best and most fully resourced group of Marines as we go forward in Afghanistan. We came out of Iraq, and then he wanted to make sure that the force that we pushed towards Afghanistan was well prepared and resourced. That was his first priority. His second one was to reset the Marine Corps. And that in itself becomes a challenge because, as you know, with the budgetary constraints and issues that we're dealing with in this nation, and you've heard about the change in size of our various militaries, then that's what's happening to our Corps. Several years ago, we were given a task to increase our Marine Corps from like 174 to 179 to 202. And that number was generated or created so that we could be able to rest the force, that they would go into combat and then they come back, and the force would be allowed to recoup and retrain and retool as they go back out again, and not come back in, go out for a year, come back in 6 months and back out there again, but to give a little more time. And so now the second priority is to reset and rebalance the Marine Corps, a Corps that's 202. Now it's going to be about 182,000, and Corps that's very large in terms of the equipment. We're going to bring it back down so that we are a Corps that the nation wants to see, and that is an amphibious Corps. That's been a primary function of the United States Marine Corps, and that's what we are now rebalancing and resetting our Corps to be able to do. And then the third priority was to educate our Marines. Many of you are probably aware that just about every 3 years in the military, you're back in school. You're back to your primary skill, and you're back into school. But he wanted to make sure that all of our Marines and sailors that work with us, the best educated, to be able to respond to the challenges that we will face in the future. And the final priority was to keep faith with our Marines and sailors, with their families, in terms of our programs to provide the type of support that they'll need to be successful as they come out of the military. We make Marines win battles and return to society good citizens, and we're very proud of that fact. That's what we do. And so in order to do that, you've got to educate your Marine Corps. You've got to make sure that you keep faith with them and have the right amount of what we call transition assistance programs, and that's what we're doing. So I wanted to give you that one over. And so what's significant about what we do? Well, We are the United States Marine Corps because you, the American public, wants a Marine Corps. And we never lose sight of that fact, that we've earned the trust of the American people, and because of that, that's the reason why we have this force that we have. And so when you come to Cleveland, the Marine Week that we are talking about, this is the first speaker series in it, is to share with you what your Marine Corps is doing, and to lead up to June the 12th, when it starts. That's the first day of it, to lead up to that, so that you'll understand its capabilities and what we're doing and how we're organized. And it'll be a wonderful, wonderful week to see your United States Marine Corps. Now, as I bring this down from the Marine Corps, let me bring this into what's going on today. The change in focus that I talked about in our nation and our Corps was that we came out of Iraq, and now we transition into Operation Enduring Freedom. And so as we transition into Operation Enduring Freedom, there were some very significant things that we know that we had to do. The Marine Corps said, hey, listen, we want to be in the Helmand Province. If that's where the action is, if that's where the challenge is, then we want to be right there in the midst of it right now. Now, the forces I have up there on that screen are just the forces in the 1st Marine Division in the Helmand Province. There are other forces there. But what you see there is that Marines and sailors of these various units. You have a regimental combat team that's in charge of the forces on the ground. You have an engineer unit. You have down in the southern portion of it is a light armor unit. We have an artillery unit there. And then we have just infantry up patrolling and doing different things. And that's what they're doing, is that we have now, when you start thinking of kinetic operations, yes, there's still fighting and rounds going off, but now we're into the advisor training aspect of it. And so this is very significant, that when you're into the training and advisor role, that you are now transitioning the Afghanistan National Security Force, the police force, and the military to begin to take a role, to begin to step forward and take over the responsibilities of the things that you and I see as daily living. And that is, when you walk down the street, you feel secure. When your kids go to school, you feel secure. Well, that's not the daily way of operations in Afghanistan, but it's becoming that because of the men and women who make up our armed forces and who are out doing the following. These are pictures of 1st Battalion, 5th Marines who just returned, but these are Marines who are out going through the fields and the roads and doing the patrolling and doing the partnership that's required to allow us to successfully transition out of Afghanistan. And that's what is so key about these operations and what we're doing. The picture that's covered up is not something classified, so I don't want you to think I'm trying to hide something. It's just that the picture just didn't come out. I have no idea why the picture just didn't come out. So that is not classified. The picture just didn't come out. And it's of a Marine patrolling, as you can see, as he's panning for explosive devices, and they're walking through all these different villages, making sure that this area remains secure and that the people of Afghanistan can take control of their cities. That's a partner patrol up at the far left, at the far right. And now you can see the little classified covered up one that I tried to describe to you. It is not classified. That's just a cover up. And we're up in the market area, and we're now doing the partnering as we explaining and demonstrating to them how they're to do the various patrols and take control and then move forward into the leadership roles in their communities and in their nation. You have everything that you can think of in terms of the special operation folks who are doing different things. Our conventional folks are involved in, and they're in the communities. They live amongst the people so that they can understand the culture and the nuances and specifics of a particular area. I was there all of Thanksgiving. I was there for 2 weeks. And it's an interesting thing that whether I was in the Marja area, the Sanguine area, or the Kajaki Dam, these areas were areas where when you land before, you were landing and fighting your way through. It wasn't clear. I land and I'm walking through now and kids swarm you. They swarm you. And when the kids are out and they're talking to you, you know you're making progress. An interesting challenge that you encounter when you're in a different culture, and a culture that does not have the same values that we have, is that women are not viewed the same way. I found this very interesting when we landed in the Sanguine area this time, and I was traveling with the Commandant of the Marine Corps. As we walked by the women, they didn't turn away. They didn't turn their backs to us. They walked completely by us. They didn't turn on the side. So I'm telling you this to say that progress is being made. Now, from a perspective of an overall viewpoint, I would say I'm cautiously optimistic, because it only takes a change here or there for things to get thrown out of whack. But I can tell you from the Marines and the sailors and the special operation, the conventional operation guys are on the ground, we're making progress and we're making changes. And so what I see here, I see success. What I see is the opportunity for another nation to move into a realm of control. And that control where they are a government of their people doing the things that they see that their nation should be doing to move towards success. And I don't have a crystal ball, but I can tell you if things continue along the same progress in which they are going now, that we will see a successful outcome of what is about to happen in Afghanistan. You're not going to see or hear that there won't be any more casualties, because as in any nation that's a booming nation and trying to take hold, you'll have challenges. I'm often reminded that it took this nation some 400 plus years to bring itself into its own. I remember when I was going over on operation, and I was watching one of the media outlets do an interview with then Secretary Rumsfeld, and he described it. He started off, he said there was looting, there was rioting, the government was out of control, and people didn't trust the government. And I go, wow. And he said, United States, 1776. I go, interesting. At the time, I thought he was going to say Iraq, but no. You know, that's what it takes. It takes a commitment. And so that's what you see when you see the men and women that you see at these far tables. They just so happen today to wear a Marine Corps uniform, but it's Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps that's doing what needs to be accomplished in Afghanistan. Not easy, very challenging, and require a lot more. Right now, from the United States Marine Corps perspective, we have about 18,500 Marines in country. This time next year, you won't have that, as the President has directed a drawdown, and we're going to draw down to roughly about 5,000 Marines. The 1st Marine Division and the 1st MEF is currently preparing to go in and transition the Helmand Province area from 2nd MEF and the 2nd Marine Division, and we'll take and do the drawdown. And so we're doing analysis, and we are looking at how we're turning over to the Afghanistan National Security Force and the police force, those various areas, so that we can be successful. So that's kind of a broad picture overview of what's going on in Afghanistan and what we're doing, and the success that you will see and hear is because of the commitment of the men and women of this nation. And so with that, I will tell you that they're all volunteers, and I know that you're proud of them, because I hear and see it all the time as I'm walking through the airports or walking down the streets. And I say this to you to say they really appreciate your support. They do what they're doing because they know that they're supported by the American people, and they want that support, and that makes the world of a difference in terms of the attitude and perspective of how you pursue your job and your success. Now, I also want to take the opportunity to tell you that as we look at this broad Marine Corps that's changing based on the economics. I mean, when the economics are not right, you can't afford a military that's this large. You know, you make these changes to adjust, and you make these changes based upon an analysis. And so we are now in Afghanistan, and we're coming out, and so now it's time for us to start back into doing those things that we have been doing before and that we're very good at. And so this is kind of the one over the world of just what's going on in the 1st Marine Division in terms of where we are and where we're going. Now, one of the things that is so important is that we're going back to our amphibious roots. If you're looking at the world, you'll see that these large city bases and populations are near the littorals and near water. So the Marine Corps and Navy team has been very good at being prepared and able to respond all over the world, when in fact there are challenges. For example, in recent history, we know about Haiti, we know about Burma, we know about Bangladesh, we know about Japan, the Philippines, the mudslides, all of these areas where in fact they call on the United States of America for support and help. And so when they call, we're able to respond because we have these amphibious ready forces that are always in the regions of the world. So this is where we are now headed. I hear, as we look at the strategy, they say we're going in the Pacific. The Marine Corps has never left the Pacific. You know, you ask any Marine, he'll tell you, well, we're in Okinawa, Japan, and we've been in Hawaii and never left there. So the refocus and the go to Australia, to send a Marine Air Ground Task Force in Australia, we're already there. And so we may increase our numbers because, in fact, the Operation Enduring Freedom has, in fact, pulled our numbers for that focus. So now we're going to take and put our Marine expeditionary units back on ships, and our unit deployment programs will start up again and go back into our rotations. And an interesting place that is just drawn a lot of attention, and it's that they're going to deploy Marines in Australia. And as Marines will go, wow, we're going to Australia. Then they said, Darwin. Boy, have you ever been to Darwin? Flies, you know. It's an area where it's not one of your honey spots, but it's a good training area and a good training venue. So as we make our way to put that Marine amphibious force there, it gives us an opportunity to be able to respond and react to challenges or to certain circumstances or situations that occur all around the area in the world. And so we refocus and get ourselves ready to be able to respond, whether it's in the northern area up around the Korean Peninsula or mainland Japan, or down in Thailand or in the Philippines. That's what we're doing. Now, the TSC up there stands for Theater Security Exercises and Operations. These are very, very important because now we have the opportunity to build relationships with these other countries. Some are allies and some are friends of the nation. And so when you build these relationships around the world and you have the opportunity to understand and appreciate the differences between the services, when in fact, if there's a national emergency, then you're not starting from ground zero. You've already conducted training operations together. You kind of have a feel for the standard operating procedures, and they have the same for us, and that makes it a whole lot easier when we're able to go in. I recall I was in Bangladesh, and it was called Sea Angel 2 because we did Sea Angel 1 around right after. We went into Desert Storm. We came out of Desert Storm within 90 days. And oh, by the way, it was this tsunami that hits, and they just vectored over. And that's the advantage of being amphibious, is that they just said, hey, listen, we need you to go over here and take care of this operation. Well, the people of Bangladesh were so taken back by the Marine Corps and the Navy, and they called them angels from the sea, and that's where the name Sea Angel came from. And so Sea Angel 1 occurred then, and lo and behold, in around 2008, another one hit. And so we were in Sea Angel 2, and we're there when you have over 500,000 homes destroyed, and millions and millions of cattle taken out of the livelihood of a nation like Bangladesh. Then when you go in and the people thank you for bringing in water and medical supplies, it's all worth it. But I remember being on the ground, and as I was talking to their military midline, their majors, and they were reminding me that they were in our schools. They had attended our Command and General Staff College, and so they understood our planning process. And so the significance behind this, as I said before, is these theater security operations gives us an opportunity to understand other militaries and other cultures, so that when in fact things occur or happen, that we're not starting from ground zero. And so that is so significant. Here, or at least in Camp Pendleton right now, we have such exercises as Iron Fist. This is an exercise with the Japanese government. For the first time, we have a regimental-sized headquarters doing amphibious operations. Now, it appears to be very easy, but it's extremely complicated when you start moving a large number of forces either to sea or in the shoreline. And so there are procedures that you've got to understand and gain an appreciation for. And so we alternate. We'll do an operation here, and then we'll do one in mainland Japan to one exercise and understand what it takes to do an amphibious operation. The other operations that we're involved in will be with our Canadian government, where they bring down their light armored battalions and they conduct training with us, and so they understand. And they also are doing partner work as a part of NATO and also in Afghanistan. So these are all critical to us, and also are critical to the success of the military as we move forward into an uncertain future. And I say that, an uncertain future, because I can't begin to tell you where the next threat will come. As we're in the Pacific, you can go and see for yourself that who's there: China, Japan, Korea, North Korea, and South. And then you look at the Philippines, and they're still involved in an insurgency operation there, and we're partnering with them. And then in Thailand and that whole area, it's all an area that could very well create a situation where we may need to respond. And so I say to you, one, it's very, very important that we have a military that's well-trained. We have a military that's very responsive. We have a military with the capability to do a variety of things. So the future of the military that you'll see is you're going to see a military, what I'll call, that's one that can do not just one thing, but several things. We'll have a lot of things in our kit bag that we can open up and pull out, whether it's kinetic operations or whether it's humanitarian disaster relief operations. We had a commandant who said 3-block war. On this block you're fighting, on this block you're feeding, and on this block you're doing medical. And so you're going to require you to have that type of flexibility and training in order to be successful and to be prepared for an uncertain future that we have in terms of assessing the threat. Now, I'm going to close and open up for questions here, because I think it's very important that we leave a certain amount of time to answer questions. But before I do that, I'm just going to go through and tell you just a little bit about some of the programs you're going to see. This summer, when you come to the Marine Week, you will see something called an Osprey. An Osprey is that aircraft that flies like a helo on some occasions, then it turns and flies like a plane on others. I encourage you to get out and look and bring your students, your friends, to see what our capabilities are in that. In addition to that, you're going to see our amphibious operations capability with our tracked vehicles and our equipment that we use to move from ship to shore. These are the things that you'll see. And then what is most impressive is our ability to communicate in our command and control systems and our intelligence capability on how we can assess and analyze what goes on in our command posts and what our young men and women are doing. I'll tell you something that's very, very interesting. You know about the greatest generation. This generation is a great generation, extremely bright. Thank you. Extremely bright, well-versed in their field of expertise. And I'm always taken back by what I see each time I'm in a combat environment or in a garrison environment on how sharp, how smart they are in what they control. The capability that a company-sized unit of about 200 Marines, and you have a platoon, a company, a battalion, a regiment, and a brigade, and a division in size, and what these young men and women can do at that level is what I had as a regiment years ago. I mean, it's the magnitude of it is just unbelievable. Their ability to operate in distributive areas, these distributed areas where they're isolated and alone and unafraid by themselves, and they make these decisions. Yes, we've had a few mistakes, but by and large, for 11 years, they've been carrying the weight on their backs and doing one fantastic job because they are responding to things that happen right then, and they got 3 seconds maybe to be able to react to it, and then they're on the media. You know, there's a camera there asking questions, and I have to tell you, they do a great job. So you're going to see and meet the Marines and the people that are behind our success. And I can't tell you how proud I am of them because they're volunteers and they're committed to doing the mission and the job that they've been assigned. And I know they come from your homes and from all over this country. And so I can't say anything but thank you for that type of support, because that is the reason why we're successful, is because we have people like yourself behind them. And so come down to see the latest weaponry, the latest systems, the future of the military and where we're going. And that's what you'll see when you come to Marine Week. In addition to that, you'll have the opportunity to be entertained with our bands, our silent drill teams, and then the opportunity to ask the young men and women questions about what they do and why they do it. They do it because they love you and they love this country. So with that, I want to say thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to spend just a little time with you. I love to talk. I could go on and on for hours talking about the military and the Marine Corps. I was just kind of getting warmed up and giving you a little bit of it. But I know that there are rules and regulations to the club. And we definitely don't want to violate any of those as we move forward into the question and answer period, because I think that's the most important aspect of any opportunity, at least any presentation, is to have a chance to ask questions. So with that, I guess the protocol means I'm supposed to back away.
Okay, today at the City Club of Cleveland, we are listening to a special program featuring Major General Ronald L. Bailey. We will return momentarily for our traditional City Club questions. We encourage you to formulate your questions for our speaker now, and remind that your questions should be brief and to the point. We welcome all of you here, especially those that are guests. We hope you will join the City Club and become and active in our own ongoing civic dialogue. In 2012, the City Club of Cleveland will turn 100 years old. There are a number of events planned To learn more about the 100th anniversary events, visit the City Club website at www.cityclub.org/100. We hope all of you will join us next week, February 15th, at 7:30 a.m. as we welcome Brigadier General Vincent R. Stewart, the Director of Intelligence for the United States Marine Corps. If you wish to make your reservations for next week's program or order a CD or DVD of today's program, please call 1-888-223-6786 or 216-621-0082. I'm going to ask two folks to stand, Miss Donna Squire and Miss Sandra Mendez. Both are representing Gold Star families. They are here, and we want to especially recognize them for being here, continuing to support us, and continuing to support this great nation. So please. We are pleased to welcome Mayor Frank Jackson, Mayor Mark Elliott, Ms. Val McCall, media partners from the Plain Dealer, TV3, distinguished guests and audience, as well as tables hosted by Cuyahoga Community College, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Thompson Hine, the Cleveland Browns, Van Atkins Architects. We thank you for your support. We are pleased to present this program with the support of several partners, including the City of Cleveland, the City Club of Cleveland, Marine Week Cleveland, the City of Brook Park, and many, many others. Now we would like to return to our speaker for our traditional City Club question and answer period. We welcome questions from everyone, including our guest. Holding the microphone today is City Club Program Director Carrie Miller. Now, our first question, please.
And Mr. Russ Mitch. Pleasure.
General, good afternoon and welcome to Cleveland. The question, sir, is with the saber rattling going on in Tehran, is there a concern among senior military leadership? Is now the time to be drawing down? Thank you, sir.
Well, as I told you, there's always this uncertain future out there. And as a military leader, I'm always concerned, but not concerned in the sense that I'm shaking in my boots. That's why we train and practice what I do. I've been an infantryman for 35 years. I've been humping with a pack on my back all 35. And the men and women that are in my unit, that's what we train and prepare for, to do the nation's business. Whatever challenge or circumstance presented to us, I can assure you that the Marines and sailors will be ready to take on that challenge, all right?
General, today on the NPR, I heard something from Pakistan that said that the Pakistanis are helping the Taliban in Afghanistan so in order to maintain a sphere of influence over Afghanistan. I noticed, and understandably, that you didn't mention either Pakistan or the Taliban in your appraisal of what was going on. What could you assess the power of the Taliban or the authority that they render in Afghanistan and the long-range effect of their continued presence in Afghanistan?
Well, I can tell you this. We've got the Taliban on the run. I'm going to tell you that the Taliban has been on the run for some time in the Helmand province here and moving to the outskirts. As I just described to you, when I went to Sangwin, Marja, Kajaki Dam, we're there now, and we're holding and we're occupying and we're doing okay. As in any operation that you're a part of, I'll leave that up to General Allen in terms of the relationship between Pakistan and the Taliban, and he has a very good plan on how we as a force to deal with that. Am I concerned about influence? I think any commander will always be concerned about the influence that any particular group can have in a particular area. But I'm going to tell you that the Taliban's on the run. And I know the Taliban's on the run because I'm on the ground, I've heard from the commanders, and the commanders feel very confident in terms of what they're doing, how they're working and building the Afghan security force, the army, and their military to take on this role. So from that perspective, I will tell you that I think we're holding our own, we're doing okay in the Helmand province and in that area, and that I will let General Allen deal with that pole mill aspect of it between Pakistan and the Taliban in terms of a relationship of fueling. As you know, before when we were in Iraq, we heard comments of Iran was fueling the insurgents there, and so we kept doing what we were doing, involved in the cities and in the areas, and building the relationships. And when you build the relationships with the people, and the people start taking control and responsibility, then you're going to see gains. And that's what's occurring in Afghanistan, is that from community to community, the people are understanding and starting to see. Now, you can create fear, but when the people believe in what they're seeing, then you're going to be okay. I think the Taliban's on the run.
General, relative to your statements about being able to talk for a long time about the Marine Corps, I wanted to just say that on my return trip from Beijing on the 30th of January, my seat partner was a gentleman who was a proud Marine from World War II who served in Manchuria in Beijing and also in the Korean War. And for 11 hours he regaled me with stories. But my question to you today is, since I will be back in Beijing and not able to attend the program when women's role in the Marine Corps is discussed, would you please maybe give us a quick overview on how women are helping in an area where it's Taliban, very anti-women, and education? Thank you.
Well, let me first address that Marine. It's called a China Marine, who was I'm sure so proud of his service and proud of being a Marine, and then he probably was in the Chosen during that time frame, so you probably heard a lot of the Marine Corps history from World War II at least to the Korean War. So thank you for being a good listener. Second, let me address this in terms of the role of women in our operation. They're called female exploitation teams. And we have women who are down in our communities that are down on those teams, and they are doing a lot of things in terms of the interaction. You're dealing with a cultural issue here, and so they help break and bridge that gap of the cultural challenges that we have in women in that society. And so they're extremely effective in terms of their impact and ability to relate to the women in Afghanistan. And so, as in anything that we do, the most important thing that we do is that we make sure Marines understand the culture. And so the Marines goes through hours of training in preparation of going into the country. And then when we understand the culture, then we don't step over the line or create problems for ourselves. And so that's all part of why we came up with the female exploitation teams, so that we allow them to leverage them and not offend anyone in that culture. And so they've been extremely effective, not just in Afghanistan, but in Iraq. They were very, very effective. And so this is a continuation of the effectiveness of our women Marines and our women in general in the theater of operation.
Semper Fi, General Bailey.
Semper Fi, sir.
I joined the Marine Corps Reserves in Warren, Ohio in high school in 1953.
Awesome.
I served 8 years.
Hoorah.
I was a combat engineer. First, I want to commend Mayor Jackson, the city of Cleveland, and Marine Corps Week for bringing you here. You've been enlightening, informative, and educational. And more than that, it's been inspirational. When I look around this August body, this room, and see the women in brown and one or two other Marines I recognize from various activities in the community. I'm just overwhelmed with gladness and support for what you're doing. Keep on keeping on, and always faithful. Thank you.
Thank you. But let me give you a clap. And I say thank you, as I do all the Marines who've gone before us, for allowing us to stand on your shoulders, because the legacy and traditions that we have in our Corps are not legacies that are created by me, but created by Marines like yourself who've gone before and established that heritage, that fine heritage. He said he was a combat engineer, and let me just tell you how challenging that is to be a combat engineer, because that's an MOS that's used quite a bit here. When you saw that picture I showed you with the Marine panning it, that was used to determine if there were any det cord or any mines or things of that nature. And that MOS is an MOS that has been used quite a bit, and I tell you, heavily involved in terms of rotation after rotation in the theater of operation. And they've taken a lot of casualties and made some sacrifices, but they've saved a lot of our men and women because of their courage and dedication. And he was a combat engineer at a time when we didn't have these little remote control little things. You know, he had to take a knife, a K-bar, and go jabbing in the ground and doing this. So courage is an understatement for you, and I thank you very much for that and your contribution to our nation and to our Corps. Semper Fi back.
General, I have a couple of questions. You did talk about women. How many women are there out of the 202 or down to 182? How many women in the Marine Corps, and has their role in combat changed? I mean, are they carrying rifles and backpacks and so forth? And then another question, tell me about the technology now that has come in. There's, of course, enormous improvements in communications. There's the term fog of war, but are the individual soldiers, sailors, Marines having individual communications equipment so they can keep in touch with each other and know where to go to win the fight? Okay.
I should know the exact number in terms of women, but that's a percentage. Since you're here, we can get that percentage back to you, around the 3% in terms of numbers. I can't give you a number, but I can give you a percentage. But what I can tell you is the following. There's no front or back to war now. This Iraq and Afghanistan changed the front and the back, you know, the rear. If you were a part of a motor transport or you're a part of a convoy operation that's going and you a female Marine, you're going to get attacked. Everybody carries a weapon, and all of our women carry packs and weapons. In the Marine Corps, our women go through the same training that the men go through. They go through the same training because there is no particular area where we can call the rear zone. Anytime you walk out of that compound, that patrol base, you may very well get hit by an improvised explosive device, or your convoy can be attacked. And these women are providing a base of fire and support just like the men are in combat. And so the role is changing, and as we speak, the discussion and role is changing. The military only responds to what Congress has laid out as our qualifications and requirements. But, you know, from what I've seen and what I've experienced is that women can do the things that men are doing in combat, and they're doing very well, and very proud of them for what they have accomplished during these 2 wars that this nation has been involved in over the past 11 years. In terms of communication, every Marine goes through a process, and I'm going to try to cut this down so it makes a little sense. The process is that when I'm given an order, we sit everybody down like this, and we have a map, and we say we're going to do this, this, this. And we explain this, this, this to you, and we tell you who's got the radio and who does not. So that's kind of how we communicate. We're not like Star Troopers where everybody's got one and can kind of decide and shift and make changes. No, what we want is when we tell the 10 of you to go do this, we don't need each one of you trying to call and say, no, don't do this. So our ability to communicate exists, but it's not through Star Trooper, like everybody got one and they're saying something. But we do have these tactical radios that they have that they can communicate, the squad leaders and the team leaders and all can communicate with. But every person doesn't have something where he can intercede and say that. Not that doesn't exist. It's the reason why we do things the way we do things. When we want everybody to go that way, we say, go that way. Okay? We don't need you to be calling on the radio saying, why I go that way. I say, go that way, you know. So we are high tech. Okay? Hopefully, you know, when they say grenade, everybody here know what to do. Get down, you know. So those kind of things are simplistic, but they're simplistic for a reason, so that everybody can do them and do them effectively. Hopefully that answered your question.
General, we hear a lot in the news lately, in particular, about the effects of PTSD and the treatment of veterans when they return home. And can you talk a little bit about some of the things that are coming to help support veterans when they return home and how the community can support veterans? Yes.
Let me say that what has transpired in our nation is really a good thing, because as I look back on Vietnam, the Korean War, and World War II and World War I, and think of what we have today in terms of our analysis and assessment, we have really gotten it right now, where we can now assess, or we have created programs to better assess post-traumatic stress. We're going to get better. And one of the things that our commandant came in and said, you know what, I want to improve our ability to provide support. And so we created this organization called the Wounded Warrior Regiment. We have an entire regiment, and their sole job in the Wounded Warrior Regiment to keep up with those who are injured or those who have issues or problems. And then around the country we have battalions, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. And then we have these satellite organizations or detachments that are in key locations in this country to be able to respond to the challenges of our veterans and to our Marines who come back that are wounded or suffering from post-traumatic stress. In addition to that, we've created programs within the organization. And now, I remember just a few years ago, we would wait until just before a unit starting to come out that we started talking about these things and to address the surveys of keeping up with how many different concussions and types of traumatic events that you had gone through. Well, prior to now we talk about it before you go in. As I tell commanders, let's talk about this now on how we're going to handle it so that it doesn't become an issue when you're in combat. You already have the procedures in place and you know what to do. Well, as you know, we have doctors and psychiatrists that are part of our organizations, and we have built programs where they're involved, where they can assess and now get our Marines to the proper counseling and get them the proper support when they need it. A great challenge that we have, and it is a challenge, is that for some reason we still have people who don't want to go because they're afraid of how they're viewed. And we're trying to take away that stigma. And we have to take away that stigma. And so when we take away that stigma that it's okay to go and see a psychiatrist and that you'll not be punished or that your career will not be put on hold, then you're going to be okay. And our commandant was very clear, and our leaders are very clear that when we came out and said, if you need help, ask for it. And I'll tell you, I did my own assessment. I realized that I was going through some sort of PTSD, that when I see members of my unit that were with me, we'll ask how each other's doing, and then before you know it, we're back there talking about our combat time. And so I say that to tell you is that the leadership understands the challenges associated with post-traumatic stress, and that we're emphasizing to our Marines and to our sailors and to all servicemen to seek help, and that you will not be punished, and it is not a stigma. You know, this is just one of those difficult things that we deal with. And what's important is that every individual processes and deals with it differently. And so we have to recognize that they process and deal with it differently. And I think the programs that we've established in terms of our surveys and our follow-ups, 90 days, holding units in place. Right now, you don't know this, but I'll tell you, the United States Marine Corps, when a unit comes back from combat, they have to stay together for 90 days. We will not move them. They stay together for 90 days because by keeping them together, we've gained an appreciation that the support network, the leadership is the same leadership that went through the traumatic events. The individual that knew them before they went in now can observe them and also point them in the right direction to get the proper help and assistance that they need. The other aspect that is very key is that we engage the families. And we have family programs unlike any that we've had before. We've hired these what we call family readiness officers, and they are professionals, and their job is to run the readiness program, to communicate and keep the families in tune and up to date on what's going on in the unit. But they're also a source of a resource to help families go in directions to get support and things of that nature. And so our family care teams, our family programs are really moved to a level, and we are constantly and continuing to improve them today. So I could go on. I get kind of emotional on that one because that's one that I think that we have to invest in our members because it makes that's what taking care of the Marine and sailor is all about, is not only in combat but after combat all the time. Yes, sir.
From time to time, the United States military has rendered training and material assistance to other militaries in different countries. We're doing that now in Afghanistan. We did it in Egypt. A lot of the Egyptian mid-level and top-level military officers have been to the United States and to the War College and understand what our military is about. Not to mention the fact that we're giving Egypt now $1.2 billion a year. And in some cases, some of those militaries have eventually turned around and have become hostile to us. Does the military, and I understand that some of these are political decisions, does the military have a say in those? And if so, or if not, what would the military think about continuing to provide aid to the Egyptian military or to the Afghanistan military when it's certainly possible that when we leave, those militaries could actually become hostile to us and we could wind up fighting them with the very information and material that we previously provided?
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I bear true faith and allegiance to the same. I take this obligation freely without a mental reservation or purpose of evasion. I tell you that is that I stand here and I do what I do because you tell me what to do. This military is run by the American people, and so when the government tells us to do something or have a policy in place with someone or some military or country, it's not a military decision. It's that the people has decided that that's the decision that they're going to make. It is a State Department decision. Oh, yes, I have a personal opinion. I will keep it to myself. And so when our Secretary of State established a policy, or the President or the Secretary of Defense, yes, sir. Aye, aye, sir. You know, but what we tell all military men, they won't ask you to do anything morally wrong. They won't ask you to compromise the values of our nation, courage, honor, and commitment. You wouldn't want me to do that, and you wouldn't support me if I did. And so as these developing situations happen so quickly, we can't just change that quickly. You know, in fact, the system kind of catches up with itself and will right or correct itself. But I serve at the pleasure of the President, and I do what my commandant tells me to do. And I know that because you have selected them and put them in positions of authority, that if they don't do what you want them to do, then we have a process for that. So For me, I don't have any hang-ups about the relationships that we have, because I go in and look at, what's the long term? A friend today, enemy tomorrow, enemy today, a friend tomorrow. So those are the challenges that we have out there. And you have military men who are well educated to all of our top-level schools and understand Paul Mill and the diamond diplomatic and military and economics, so we understand that, and I'm going to keep my mouth closed.
Today at the City Club, we have been listening to Marine Week Cleveland Speaker Series featuring Major General Ronald L. Bailey, Commanding General of the 1st Marine Division. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This program is now adjourned.